A millionaire publicly humiliates his pregnant wife for a lover. And 3 years later, faces regret. The air in the elegant dining hall felt thick with tension. The kind that settles in just before something irreversible happens. Logan Carter stood at the center of attention, his towering figure cutting through the delicate hum of conversation. His gaze was cold, detached, and distant, but his words had the precision of a sharpened blade. Across the room, his wife, Amelia, sat still, her trembling hands barely able to hold the water glass in front of her. The restaurant's patrons had turned their heads, quietly observing the spectacle unfolding. "I can't keep doing this. Amelia." Logan's voice rang out, his tone as icy as his eyes. "You need to understand that things have changed." Amelia's breath caught in her throat. She had known something was wrong for months, but hearing it aloud, in front of strangers, in front of her, was more than she had prepared for. The other woman, Sophia, stood by Logan's side, her hand resting lightly on his arm, a silent declaration of their affair. Amelia's heart sank, but she said nothing. It was not the time for begging or pleading. It was too late. 3 years later, the sting of that moment still haunted Logan. The skyscraper's windows gleamed in the morning sun, casting reflections across the city below. Logan Carter stood in his office, watching the endless horizon of glass and steel. This was his kingdom, built with ambition, risk, and an unrelenting desire for more. He had long since achieved what others only dreamed of: power, wealth, and influence. Yet, as the years passed, the satisfaction of his accomplishments had dulled like a fine wine that had gone sour with age. "Mr. Carter, your next meeting begins in 5 minutes." His assistant's voice broke through the intercom, a reminder of the life he had carved out for himself. One obligation at a time, Logan straightened his tie, the silk cool beneath his fingertips. The empire he'd built was a testament to his success. But as he prepared for another meeting, the echoes of his past were never far from his mind. He could still hear the mocking laugh of a senior colleague from years ago. "You'll never last here. Kid, look at me now," he thought, his jaw tightening with pride and bitterness. Yet despite the victories, there was a hollow ache that success could not fill. Across the city, in a modest but tastefully decorated apartment, Amelia Carter stood in front of the mirror, her hands trembling ever so slightly as she applied her lipstick. The face staring back at her looked tired, older than her years. The past 3 years she had taken their toll, physically, emotionally, and mentally. But today was not just any day. It was the day she would see Logan again, for the first time since he had left her publicly humiliated and alone. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection, her voice barely above a breath. It wasn't just lunch with her estranged husband. It was something more. She could feel it in the pit of her stomach, the way her nerves buzzed beneath her skin. Amelia's hand moved instinctively to her abdomen, where the secret she had kept for so long still lay hidden. How would she tell him? After all this time, how would she find the words to reveal the truth that could change everything? The thought lingered as she smoothed down her dress, bracing herself for whatever the day might bring. Logan strolled through the luxury mall, his presence commanding attention without effort. He was late, as usual. The lunch meeting with Amelia had slipped his mind until his assistant reminded him that morning. Now, walking past the glass windows of high-end boutiques, he noticed the glances thrown his way as if people recognized him from the headlines. But Logan wasn't alone. Beside him, Sophia, her light and melodic laughter, hung on to his every word, her arm linked with his, as if they were the perfect picture of success and status. They seemed like the ideal couple to anyone watching, but they were far from it. Amelia stood near the restaurant entrance, her heart pounding in her chest as she spotted Logan, her Logan with Sophia. The sight was like a punch to the gut. She had tried to prepare herself for this moment, but nothing could have genuinely braced her for the reality of seeing her husband with another woman. "Not like this. Not here." "Logan," she called out, her voice barely holding together. He turned, his expression shifting from surprise to something colder. Guilt flickered in his eyes for the briefest moments, but indifference quickly masked it. "Amelia," he said, his tone clipped and formal, as if addressing a stranger. "What are you doing here?" "We had lunch planned," she replied, struggling to keep her composure. "Don't you remember?" Logan shrugged, his arms still entwined with Sophia's. "It must have slipped my mind." Amelia's heart sank even further. But before she could speak, Sophia's sharp laughter cut through the tension. "Don't you see?" she sneered, eyes glinting with malice. "Logan has more important things to do than entertain a forgotten wife." The word stung like a slap. Amelia's vision blurred as tears welled in her eyes. "Logan, I need to talk to you. It's important," she whispered, her voice breaking. But Logan didn't care. His voice grew cold and distant. "I'm busy. Amelia, go home." And with that, the empire Logan had built, the life Amelia had once thought she belonged to, began to crumble, one crack at a time. Amelia felt like the world was collapsing around her when she stepped out of the restaurant. The noise of the busy city faded into the background as she wandered through the crowded streets, tears streaming down her face. People passed by without a second glance, oblivious to the emotional storm she was battling. Her legs carried her forward, but her heart felt like it was dragging behind, shattered and too heavy to bear. Every step took her further away from the life she once knew, which she thought was built on love and partnership. But now, all of that was gone. Logan had made his choice. And Amelia, despite her love for him, knew she couldn't stay in the shadow of a man who had so easily discarded her. When she finally arrived at their once shared apartment, the silence inside was deafening. She sank to the floor, her back against the door, her tears unstoppable. Memories flooded her, memories of when Logan had been everything to her. They had built a life together, shared dreams, and made promises. And now, all of that felt like a distant echo. With trembling hands, Amelia pulled out a suitcase from the closet. Each piece of clothing she packed felt like her heart being torn out. She paused only to scribble a short letter, leaving it on the nightstand where Logan would see it. Her words were simple, yet loaded with the weight of her broken heart. "Logan, when we married, I thought we'd stand together through everything. But I see now that I was wrong. I can't live like this anymore. I'm leaving, and I'm taking with me something more precious than you'll ever realize. Goodbye, Amelia." With one last look around the apartment, Amelia picked up her suitcase and walked out, closing the door on the life she had once cherished. Logan returned to the apartment hours later, exhausted from the day and indifferent to Amelia's absence, at least. That's what he told himself. He loosened his tie as he wandered through the empty rooms, calling her name out of habit. Amelia. No answer. It wasn't until he reached the bedroom that he saw the letter on the nightstand. Frowning, he picked it up, the casual tone of the morning now replaced with a growing sense of unease. His eyes scanned the letter, and as he read the last few lines, his confusion turned to anger. She had left just like that. They walked away from everything they had built with little conversation. "Damn it, Amelia," Logan muttered under his breath, crumpling the letter and throwing it against the wall. His pulse quickened, and for the first time in years, he felt something he couldn't control, regret. But it was fleeting. He convinced himself that she'd come back and was just emotional and needed time. He had more important things to worry about. After all, there were deals to close, meetings to attend, and a reputation to maintain. Amelia was just a distraction. Still, as Logan lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, a small, nagging voice in the back of his mind whispered something unsettling. What if she doesn't come back this time? It had been 3 years since Amelia had left, and in that time, Logan had buried himself in work, deals, and building his empire even further. But no matter how many zeros appeared in his bank account, there was a gnawing emptiness that no amount of wealth could fill. He had everything except peace. As Logan was preparing for another meeting one afternoon, his phone rang. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but something in his gut told him to answer. "Hawkins," he said brusquely. "Mr. Carter, this is Dr. Adams from Boston General Hospital," a woman's voice replied. "I'm calling about Amelia Thompson and her daughter, Claire." The mention of Amelia's name made Logan freeze. "Daughter?" His mind raced as he tried to make sense of the words. Daughter? What are you talking about? Logan asked, his voice strained. I understand this might be a shock, but according to our records, you are listed as Claire Thompson's father. She is Amelia's daughter, and she has a congenital heart condition. We need your authorization for an emergency surgery. Logan's world spun. A daughter? How could this be? He hadn't spoken to Amelia in years. How could she have kept this from him? I don't understand. Logan stammered, trying to process the flood of information. Mr. Carter, I know this is overwhelming, but we need your decision. Claire needs immediate surgery. Dr. Adams urged, her tone more urgent now. Logan swallowed hard. His daughter. He had a daughter, and she was in danger. Yes, he said finally, his voice hoarse. Do whatever it takes. As he hung up the phone, Logan sat in stunned silence. Amelia had left, not only with her broken heart, but also with a child he never knew existed. And now, that child's life was hanging in the balance. Logan arrived at Boston General Hospital hours later, his heart pounding. The sterile scent of the hospital hit him as he entered. And for the first time in years, fear gripped him in a way no business deal ever had. Somewhere in this building, his daughter, his flesh and blood, was fighting for her life. As he approached the information desk, something caught his eye. There, standing at the end of the hallway, was Amelia. She was speaking with a nurse, her back to him, her posture tense and tired. Beside her was a minor figure that caught Logan's breath, Claire. Even from a distance, Logan could see the resemblance. She had Amelia's golden curls and his piercing blue eyes. For a moment, Logan was paralyzed, his feet rooted to the spot. How could he approach them? How could he face Amelia after everything? It was Claire who noticed him first. Her blue eyes met his. And at that moment, Logan saw a recognition flicker in her gaze. She tugged at Amelia's sleeve, pointing toward him. Amelia turned, and her eyes widened in shock as they locked onto Logan. 1,000 emotions crossed her face: surprise, fear, anger, and something else he couldn't quite place. She whispered his name as if she couldn't believe what she saw. Logan took a tentative step forward, his heart pounding in his chest. Amelia, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I came as soon as I heard. Amelia instinctively pulled Claire closer, her expression a mix of protectiveness and wariness. How did you find out? She asked, her voice barely concealing the bitterness. The hospital called me, Logan replied, his eyes shifting between Amelia and Claire. They needed my authorization for the surgery. There was a long silence, both standing on the edge of an emotional chasm that felt impossible to cross. Finally, Amelia spoke, her voice soft but firm. Let's talk in private. Logan nodded, following her to a small, empty waiting room. Outside, the noise of the hospital buzzed around them. But inside, it felt like time had stopped. He had so much to say. But as he looked at Amelia, his wife, the mother of his child, he wasn't sure where to begin. Sitting in the small waiting room, Logan felt the weight of his past choices pressing down on him like never before. Amelia's eyes were fixed on him, her face etched with pain and exhaustion. The years had not been kind to either of them, but it was clear that Amelia had carried the heavier burden. How could you not tell me? Logan asked, his voice breaking the silence that hung between them. How could you keep her from me? Amelia's expression hardened. When? Logan? When was I supposed to tell you? When you were too busy humiliating me in front of strangers? Or maybe during one of your business trips with Sophia? Logan flinched at the mention of Sophia, the bitter truth of his past actions hitting him squarely in the chest. He had no defense, no words that could undo the damage he had done. I made mistakes, he said softly, his voice thick with regret. I know that, but I didn't know about Claire. If you had known, you would have what? Amelia interrupted, her voice sharp and hurt. Thrown money at the problem? Sent a nanny to care for us while you built your empire? Logan's throat tightened, the truth of her words cutting deep. He had been chasing power, wealth, and status for years, believing that mattered most. But now, sitting across from Amelia, the woman he had once loved, and thinking about the daughter he barely knew, He realized how wrong he had been. "I want to help now," Logan said, his voice steadying. "I want to be there for Claire, for both of you. I know I can't fix the past, but I can try to do the right thing from now on." Amelia studied him for a long moment, as if weighing his sincerity. The anger in her eyes slowly faded, replaced by a deep weariness. "Claire needs you," she said softly. "But this doesn't change what happened between us." Logan nodded, accepting the truth. "I understand, but whatever it takes, I'm here for Claire." Just as they finished speaking, the door to the waiting room swung open, and there stood Sophia, her high heels clicking against the cold hospital floor. Her expression was irritation and disbelief, as though she couldn't comprehend why Logan was here, why he had suddenly disappeared from their life. "Logan," she called, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. "This is where you've been?" Amelia stiffened beside him, pulling herself upright. She glanced at Logan, and though she said nothing, the tension between them was palpable. Claire was asleep in the hospital room, oblivious to the confrontation outside. Logan turned to Sophia, his face a mix of weariness and resolve. "Sophia, now's not the time." "Not the time?" Sophia's eyes narrowed, flicking between Logan and Amelia. "What about everything we've built?" "Logan? What about all the plans we've made? You're just going to walk away now because she," Sophia pointed at Amelia, her tone venomous, "comes back into your life?" Amelia remained silent, but her expression said everything. She had no interest in engaging with Sophia, no desire to fight for a man who had already let her down once. Logan's voice was firm, though regret lingered in his eyes. "Sophia, I need to be here. My daughter needs me." Sophia scoffed, shaking her head in disbelief. "Your daughter? Logan, you don't even know her. You don't know anything about this life. What are you trying to prove?" Logan felt a surge of guilt, but also a clarity he hadn't felt in years. "I'm not trying to prove anything. This is my responsibility, and I won't walk away from it." Sophia stared at him momentarily, her eyes filled with cold fury. "Fine," she said, her voice low and icy. "But don't think you can return to me when this happens. I'm done." And with that, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving Logan standing in the empty corridor, the weight of his decision heavy on his shoulders. He had chosen his daughter over his past, and though the road ahead was uncertain, he knew he had made the right choice. In the following days, Logan stayed by Claire's side, watching over her as she recovered from the surgery. He marveled at her strength and the way she seemed so small yet resilient. For the first time, he understood what it meant to be truly vulnerable, to care about something more than success or wealth. As Claire slept, Logan reflected on the life he had built, the empire of glass and steel that had once been his most outstanding achievement. But now, it felt hollow, meaningless in the face of what mattered. It was during one of these quiet moments that Logan made a decision. He couldn't continue living the way he had been. Something had to change. Back in New York, Logan called an emergency meeting with his company's board. The room was filled with influential executives, men and women who had helped him build his empire. But as Logan looked around the table, he realized that none mattered to him anymore. "Gentlemen," he began, his voice calm but resolute, "I've decided to step down as CEO, effective immediately." The room erupted in shock and confusion, but Logan remained steadfast. "I'll be donating my shares to a fund supporting the school Amelia is building for underprivileged children, and whatever Claire needs for her recovery. That's where my focus will be." As chaos broke out around him, Logan simply turned off the call, his mind clear for the first time in years. He had made his choice. Weeks later, Logan returned to Boston. Claire, now fully recovered, was running through the schoolyard of Amelia's new school, her laughter filling the air. Logan watched her from a distance, his heart swelling with pride and regret. How much he had missed, how much he had thrown away in pursuit of something that no longer held any value to him. Amelia stood beside him, her expression soft as she watched Claire play. There was a sense of peace between them for the first time in years. "We did it," Logan said softly, more to himself than Amelia. She nodded, her eyes still on their daughter. "Yes, we did." Logan turned to her, his voice low and filled with emotion. I know I can't change the past, Amelia, but I want to be here for her, and if you let me, for you too. Amelia met his gaze, her eyes searching his for any sign of doubt. For a long moment, she said nothing, and Logan braced himself for the rejection he knew he deserved. But then, she nodded. We'll see, Logan, one step at a time. And in that moment, Logan felt something he hadn't felt in years, hope. As the sun set behind the city skyline, Logan, Amelia, and Claire walked hand in hand toward their new life. It wasn't perfect, and the scars of the past still lingered. But for the first time, they were moving forward together. Logan had learned the hardest lesson, that success wasn't measured in wealth or power, but in the love and connections you nurture. He had paid a high price for his mistakes, but what he had gained in return was far more valuable. They were a family now, bound by love, forgiveness, and second chances. Logan looked at Amelia and Claire and realized that was happiness's true meaning. Logan's journey is a powerful reminder that pursuing wealth and success can often lead us astray from what truly matters. In his desperate climb to the top, he sacrificed the relationships that could have given his life meaning. It wasn't until he faced the consequences of his actions, the loss of his family, and the discovery of his daughter, that he realized the actual cost of his choices. Through forgiveness, sacrifice, and commitment, Logan was able to find redemption and rebuild a life based on love and second chances. The critical points of this emotional story highlight the importance of self-reflection, taking responsibility for past mistakes, and understanding that real success is measured not by money or power, but by the relationships we nurture and the love we give. Logan's transformation is a powerful lesson for all of us, encouraging us to prioritize the things that truly matter in life: family, connection, and personal growth. If this story touched your heart and reminded you of what truly matters, we invite you to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. What lessons did you take away from Logan's journey of redemption and forgiveness? We'd love to hear your reflections. To avoid missing out on more emotional narratives like this, subscribe to our Life Stories Across Borders channel and turn on notifications. Together, let's continue exploring stories that remind us of the value of love, the strength of forgiveness, and the importance of family. In the end, just like Logan discovered, the greatest treasure in life is not what we gain, but what we are willing to give up for the ones we love. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey, and we look forward to sharing more stories that touch the heart and inspire change.